Now, if Ayn Rand did not invent this false dichotomy of the collective against the individual, she certainly did popularize it. So that today that we have these right-wing libertarians trying to push their extreme elitist ruling class agenda in the guise of populism, instead of saying we need to give power to the corporations, we need to hand the world over to the mega rich, they will rephrase things, in odd terms, such as the individual versus the collective. And whether or not they believe in this stuff or not, because sure, people like Stefan Molyneux or Gene Griffin probably really believe in this, nonetheless, what they're really doing is putting forth a bad false dichotomy that if we really follow this would just leave humanity down to a disastrous path. There is no such thing as the individual versus the collective 99% of the time. There are instances and institutions where one is put on top of the other to the detriment of everyone. So, for example, if we look at school systems, public education systems, that's a place where students, children, are not given the freedom to discover who they are or to discover what they can do, because they are forced into this Lord of the Flies conformity cult camp where everything is about learning how to conform to some abstract notion of being cool and who's doing what and how you're supposed to act and behave. So we have the individual is really assaulted in these systems. And likewise, we can go to certain fascist countries in history and look at how the individual is oppressed. If we look at North Korea, that's an extreme example of the individual being oppressed. However, this imbalance is not what we usually see. Typically, in almost every instance, the individual and the collective are co-creating forces that support each other. Now, even if you think someone is an individual and doing something on their own, for the most part, everything that they are doing is part of a group effort. So if you can imagine someone by themselves, for example, writing a novel, we might think that person is doing it on their own. But unless that person started from ground zero with not only no written language, but no language at all, and unless that person invented language, invented speech, invented writing, invented literature, unless that person invented everything on their own, they have borrowed an awful lot from the human collective. I mean, we can take that with any artistic pursuit. We can take that with any scientist, any inventor. They are borrowing a lot. And it takes a huge effort just to add a little bit of creativity onto what has already been produced through thousands of years of intellectual evolution. So without this group, there is no individual pursuit. All we are is some wild animal trying to survive because we don't have everything. So the individual is dependent upon the collective, but likewise the collective is largely dependent on individuals pursuing their own interest, I mean, to a degree. So if you take a society like North Korea that oppresses people, you're not going to have individuals creating things that they could have created otherwise. But everyone is going to suffer for that. When we give individuals the freedom to pursue their own interests and to create things on their own, everyone benefits. Everyone benefits from that artist who comes up with something great. Everyone benefits from the scientific discoveries that come from one person working by themselves and making that discovery. So, Einstein, discovered, the theory of relativity, but everyone benefits from that. But he was able to do that because he had enough time, thankfully, where he was able to pursue that. If Einstein had worked 18 hours a day in an industrial revolution factory, we wouldn't have that. And not only would have he suffered, but everyone would have suffered for that. So we have these two things working together. And when it comes to what type of society we don't want a society that favors the individual to the point where we suppress the collective, but we don't want a society that's all about the collective to the point of suppressing the individual. And since the collective and the individual are two aspects of us, if you suppress one, you're going to be suppressing the other. If you take, for example, this capitalistic world that we're living in, where everything is done about supposedly in the name of the individual, and that's what all these libertarians want to talk about. As much as it's great that you don't have some government authority telling you you have to do this or you have to do that, when you go outside and you see some 20-year-old working in McDonald's flipping burgers, not all that is an individual who, because of economic oppression, is not able to fully become who they are. And because they can't develop themselves, everyone suffers, because you might have an Einstein flipping burgers at McDonald's. So that is the waste. If we look at capitalism, not only do we have great physical waste, we have just a waste of humanity, a waste of people producing all this, producing nothing for no reason, when they should be producing things of real meaning. So this is a false dichotomy, and anytime someone brings it up, it should be called out. The society that we want is one where the collective supports the individual as much as possible, so those individuals can not just be happy and live the lives that they want to live, but they will produce things that bring the collective forward much more than if you created some authoritarian dictatorship that tells everyone what to do. Uh, but these forces really are not battling each other, and this perception that they are, is so wrong and so stupid. It really drives me nuts. Okay, bye.